Constitutional law plays an essential role in shaping Malaysia's legal structure, most especially through federalism, where legislative authority is shared between the central government and the state governments. The pith and substance doctrine plays an important role in this situation to prevent the invention of different levels of the government in legislation. The following doctrines enable courts to determine whether a particular act relevant to a legal issue falls under the category of a proper subject for a specific level of government. It serves as a check and a balance mechanism and has been important in defining the extent of federalism in numerous cases in Malaysia.
Moving on to problem statement. There are two main issues. The first one is the difficulty of applying the doctrine of pith and substance to decide whether certain laws fall under federal or state legislative authority. The second issue is the challenge to determine the appropriate jurisdiction, whether federal or state, particularly in cases involving the Sharia and civil court in Malaysia. The doctrine of pith and substance is crucial in determining federal jurisdiction in Malaysia, particularly in cases involving the Sharia and civil court. It helps to decide whether which court has the authority even when a case appears to fall under Sharia jurisdiction. The doctrine was first applied in the case of Muhammad bin Daud against Government of Malaysia, where a law on public order was found to be disguised legislation on religion, thus void as Parliament lacked the authority to legislate on religion. The method evolved in cases like Jabatan Agama Islam Wilayah Persekutuan and others against Berjaya Books Sdn Bhd, emphasizing that Sharia laws apply only to Muslims. In Ramli bin Ghani against Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia, the court ruled that the Act 755, which regulates medical practice, does not prohibit Islamic medicine. This highlights the doctrine's role in resolving legislative authority disputes between federal and state government. Thank you.
Our research objective is to investigate the following, which are: the first one, the relationship between Malaysia's federalism concept and the theory of pith and substance. Second, the importance of this doctrine in legislative enactment. And finally, how to use the theory of pith and substance to ensure that the federal government's authority to create new laws is not greater than that granted by the federal constitution. Now moving on to research question. There are three questions that we wanted to be answered at the end of our research, which are: the first one, what function does the pith and substance doctrine play before, during and after the legislative passage? Second, what role does federalism play in the philosophy of pith and substance? And the last one, how can we ensure that the federal government's power to enact new laws based on the concept of pith and substance doesn't go beyond the authority provided by the federal constitution?
To go to the next part, which is the methodology. So in order to complete this case study, we have conducted a comprehensive review of the law cases, and we also went through law books, journal articles in order to complete these case studies. And we also analyzed all the data collection through an appropriate qualitative techniques in order to make sure that our data is reliable and valid, in order to make sure the result will be meaningful and correspond with the line of goals and the research questions of this case study. Moreover, we also refer to the government websites and also federal constitutions. Federal constitution has been our main sources of reference in order to complete case study, because we would like to assess the whole part of the doctrine of pith and substance.
Moving to the discussion. In Ramli bin Ghani against Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia, the Malaysian court examined the legislative power of Parliament regarding public health and employment regulation of civil servants. The case highlighted the importance of constitutional compliance in administrative decisions, ensuring adherence to law enacted by Parliament. The doctrine of pith and substance was pivotal in determining whether legislation fell within Parliament's constitutional authority. This doctrine allows courts to identify the primary purpose of law and uphold them as valid if they align with Parliament jurisdiction, even if they have incidental effect beyond it. The interpretation of Article 74 of the Federal Constitution clarified the division of legislative power between federal and state government, ensuring both operate with their defined limits. Additionally, the court's interpretation of terms like medicine and health within this framework emphasize the inclusion of Islamic and Malay traditional medicine under the scope of public health regulation. This case underscored the judiciary role in maintaining the integrity of legislative process and upholding the rules of law.
Afterward, the doctrine of pith and substance in Malaysia federalism is a key legal principle ensuring that laws are evaluated based on their primary purpose rather than incidental effect. Each play a big role by maintaining an equal distribution of power between the federal and state government. This doctrine will have been outlined in the 9th schedule of Malaysia Constitution Federalism, help determine legislative competence by examining the true nature of law and ensuring they align with constitutional boundaries. Thus, court used the doctrine to resolve judicial dispute, preventing legislative overreach, and ensuring law are enacted by the appropriate legislative body. Recent development, including court ruling, legislative amendment, and social discussion, help shape the understanding and application of this doctrine, impacting how power is distributed among government branches and safeguarding individual liberties. It plays a crucial role in various areas such as land use and Islamic law, balancing federal action with state sovereignty. Ultimately, the doctrine of pith and substance reinforces the structural foundation of Malaysia federalism, providing clarity in the vision of power and protecting the constitutional framework from judicial encroachment.
The doctrine of pith and substance undoubtedly plays a significant role in the Malaysian federalism since it defines the division between the federal and state law with reference to the provision of the Federal Constitution of Malaysia 9th Schedule. It defines the role of laws, which helps the courts consider laws based on their primary purposes instead of incidental impact. This doctrine has been successfully used in cases such as Muhammad bin Daud against government of Malaysia to ensure that laws comply with the constitution. It avoid legislation enroachment, prescribe legal obedience, and sustain the proportionate distribution of powers between the federal and state levels, thus enhancing public security of legislation. This is an important doctrine that needs to be maintained to support federalism and needs to be applied as the country grows and develops.